How can you know if you've passed the walk and turn test, the field sobriety test, during a DUI investigation in Georgia? Well, the walk and turn test is a physical coordination test, but it is also a mental acuity test. It is designed to see if you can both perform a physical act while listening and memorizing a series of complex and layered instructions. Much like the other field sobriety tests, it is designed so that the driver who's taking the test won't exactly appreciate or understand how they're being scored on the test. In particular, the officer is trained to look for 8 distinct clues during the walk and turn. And if the officer sees at least 2 of any of those 8 clues, well then his training tells him that supports an arrest decision. That is why, in many instances, people may, quote unquote, fail the field sobriety test or exhibit 2 clues before they even start the walking portion of the test. The walk and turn is divided up into two parts. The first part is the instructional part, and the second part is the walking part. So the instructional part, the officer is trained to look for those 2 clues, 2 of the 8 clues. And the instructional part goes as follows. The officer asks you to stand in a heel-to-toe position with your arms at your side. And the officer will confirm with you, do you understand that you're to stay in this position until I tell you to move? Now the test has begun, even though the driver may not appreciate or understand that the test has begun. Once the officer has gotten the driver in a heel-to-toe position with his arms at his side, the officer is carefully watching to see if the driver steps out of that position at all. The other thing the officer is watching while he gives the instructions for the walk and turn is to see if the driver starts too soon. It is normal for people who are being asked to perform a physical test when they're watching the demonstration to sort of practice and walk along. And so the test is designed to see if the driver can remember the instruction not to move. So in the instructional stance, while the officer gives instructions, the officer is watching to see, do you lose your balance and step out at all of that heel-to-toe position, and or do you start too soon? If you do one or both, those clues will be marked against you. And so that is why many drivers may, quote unquote, fail the walk and turn test before they've even really started walking, because they either step out of the position and they start walking too soon before the officer tells them to begin. Now the other clues the officer is looking for is to see if you follow the instructions and keep your balance during the walking part. The officer tells the driver to take 9 heel-to-toe steps. Your heel is supposed to come in contact with your toe as you walk 9 steps out. You're supposed to keep your arms at your side. If your arms are lifted 6 inches or more, that is going to count as a clue. If you stop while you are walking, that is also going to be counted as a clue. When you get to the end of the 9 steps, you're to leave your lead foot forward and take a small series of steps around that lead foot. If you turn in the wrong direction, or you pivot instead of taking a small series of steps, or you lose your balance during the turn, then that will be marked off as an improper turn. On the 9 steps that you'll be instructed to walk back, the officer continues to watch to see if you miss heel to toe, if you raise your arms, if you stop, if you take the improper number of steps. The officer is also watching to see if you stay on the line throughout the test. Now sometimes there's a visible line on the side of the road, and so you can clearly see if you've stepped off. Other times the officer has told the driver to imagine a line, and in those instances it's not quite as obvious if or when the driver will step off. The officer is looking for a total of 8 clues. The final clue the officer is looking for to see if you ask for additional instructions, and that will also be counted against you. So in the initial series of instructions, when the officer says, do you understand, that is your opportunity to clarify anything you may not understand. Because if you stop during the test to get additional clarification, that will be marked against you as well.